I, Rashi, welcome you all at 17th edition of Renewable Energy India Expo 2024 with conference session partners Adair and Infineon. So today's topic we have India has all the essential ingredients to become a major remanufacturing hub. And we are going to cover the points innovations in manufacturing, cost of raw material, localization of sourcing, export promotion councils, creating export opportunities, subsidies to promote Indian products in international markets, challenges, and way forward. So we have Rudranil Roy Sharma as our moderator. I would like to join him. I would request him to join the stage and call our distinguished speakers for the discussion.
Good morning, everyone. I will start with Mr. Ivan Saha. He is whole-time director and CEO of Vikram Solar. Mr. Saha, kindly come to the stage. I'll give you a brief introduction of Mr. Saha. He holds a master degree in material science from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and he's also a trained Six Sigma black belt from Motorola University. He has over 29 years of experience in solar business and technology deployment. Before joining Vikram Solar as CEO, he was CTO of Renew Power, where he set up their manufacturing vertical. He has previously been the CTO at Vikram, Head Technology at Mozarbeer, and scientist staff at the Indian ISRO. He has published more than 65 research papers and filed more than 10 patents on PV technology. He is the chairman of FICCI Manufacturing Task Force, chairman of CII Eastern Region Energy Council, co-chair of ITRPV Board, member of the advisory board of World Solar Congress, and is involved with several other national and international organizations on photovoltaics. Thank you so much to grace the stage today. Next, I'd like to call upon Mr. Dr. Amit Paithankar. He is CEO of Waaree Energies. Dr. Paithankar is a seasoned leader with extensive experience in the energy sector, currently serving as the CEO of Waaree Energies Limited, with a career spanning prominent roles at Renew, Emerson, ABB, Quantum Graves, etc. Dr. Paithankar has been instrumental in driving innovation and operational excellence across various domains, including applications and product engineering, quality control, R&D, and country management. At Waaree, Dr. Paithankar is committed to advancing the global energy transition by establishing robust manufacturing capabilities in India and the United States. His leadership focuses on building a customer-centric organization that drives sustainable growth. He holds a PhD in high voltage engineering and an electrical engineering degree. Outside of his professional endeavors, he also enjoys long rejuvenating runs on weekends, embodying his passion for a balanced and healthy lifestyle. Thank you so much for gracing the stage today. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Sujay Ghosh. He is Vice President and Country Managing Director for First Solar. Mr. Ghosh is a business leader with 30 years of track record in delivering growth in emerging markets by nurturing deep industry relations and building high-performance teams, with specific expertise on the power sector across multiple segments and with domain knowledge of a broad set of technologies from gas turbine to wind and solar PV and grid automation. At First Solar, his responsibilities include devising the scale-up of First Solar's operation in India, advocating for local manufacturing investments in the country, and subsequently leading the build-out of First Solar's new integrated solar PV module manufacturing facility of 3.3 gigawatt, conceptualizing and developing the underlying manufacturing and support organization of 1,000 plus highly skilled professionals to run a globally competitive PV manufacturing operations from India. Thank you so much for today. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Anurag Garg. He is CEO Jackson Engineers. Mr. Garg leads the solar business at Jackson Group, responsible for driving growth in solar channels. With over 33 years of experience, he has a strong profit center management and business development and manufacturing background. Previously, he was Vice President Asia Pacific for the solar business at Schneider Electric India. He is known for his strategic planning and entrepreneurial expertise. Thank you so much. Next in the panel, Mr. Sandeep Behal. He is Vice President Invest India. Maybe, shall we just wait for him or we'll continue? Maybe he will join. Yeah, okay. So next, what we have, I'll just give you a quick introduction of Mr. Behal. So he will be joining us soon. I think he's outside. He has been an integral part of Invest India since inception and currently serves as the head of the industrial cluster, which includes automotive, capital goods, defense and aerospace and energy sectors. In the past, he has successfully managed various strategic and bilateral projects. and he has been instrumental in providing advisory services to state governments for establishing subnational investment promotion agencies, devising industrial policies and attracting investments. With a career spanning over 17 years, he has worked with multinational corporations and consulting firms holding significant responsibilities in the US, Europe, and Asia. His expertise lies in consulting, business development, and project management, and he has accomplished over 200 consulting and advisory assignments across Asia, Africa, and Middle East. He has advised Fortune 1000 companies in areas such as expansion and diversification, performance improvement, growth, and strategy. I think he will be joining the panel very soon, but next, what we have a very quick 5 minutes presentation on the current status, and I'd like to set the context for the panel discussion, and then we'll move to the panel discussion stage. Okay, so I'll just take 3-4 minutes time to set the context. So whatever we are talking today, the renewable energy is absolutely at the center of whatever the government is doing, or the not only Indian government, but overall globally, whatever energy transition that we are seeing, renewable energy is absolutely at the center of this energy transition. And solar is within the renewable is the key driver. And if I'm talking about very specifically for India, India accounts for close to around 7% of the global CO2 emission. And overall Asia Pacific, if we talk about Asia Pacific account for more than 50% of the global CO2 emission. So for this region, energy transition or whatever initiatives that we are taking is absolutely crucial. Now, if you just look at the global renewable energy capacity, I'm talking about the last 10 years, from 2013 to 2023, global renewable energy capacity from close to around 1,566 gigawatt to, it has now increased to close to around 68 gigawatt. And if I very specifically talk about solar within that, solar in 2013 was close to around 160 gigawatt. I'm talking of the installed capacity. From there, it has now increased to close to around 1.5 terawatt or 1419 gigawatt. And it is the growth is almost 9 to 10 times. It is one of the fastest growing renewable energy mode globally. And Asia is the fastest growing region in terms of RE capacity addition between 2013 to 2023 with a CAGR of 13.5%. Now, focusing to India from the global, India obviously a few years back during the COP26 laid out 5 vision, which we call as an Panchamrit. And one of them was that to get the fossil fuel energy capacity of 500 gigawatt by 2030, and also meet 50% of its energy requirement from renewable energy by 2030. Keeping in mind, we are absolutely in line to meet those targets. If we talk about except the large hydro project, between FY 14 to FY 24, we have total renewable capacity of 144. If we include the large hydro, it will cross 190. Within that, if we see solar, FY 14, the capacity was only 2.6 gigawatt to now, in the end of FY 24, it was close to around 82 gigawatt. The renewable solar installed capacity has grown by almost 30 times in the last 10 years. That is a kind of a growth that we are talking about. And I'm sure by FY 30, the capacity will almost be touching 300 gigawatt if we don't meet that target. Multiple enablers, demand enablers in place. There are many. I'll just talk about a few of them. Starting from 37.7 gigawatt of solar parks. Then there are PM Surya Ghar Mukti Yojana, which is essentially a rooftop scheme, definitely going to add close to 30-35 gigawatt of rooftop through that. PM Kusum is there. Then there is a CPSU scheme of 12 gigawatt. The government has talked about 50 gigawatt of annual tendering. And then there are multiple other RPO obligations, etc. So multiple demand enablers in place. And keeping in mind all these demand enablers and the government policies, the manufacturers also in tandem, they are also setting up their capacities. And we have in the panel today some of the India's leading solar cell and module manufacturers today, and we'll be hearing from them. So from the supply side, starting from PLI, and then domestic content requirement or DCR, then ALMM, approved list of models and manufacturers, import duty, etc. There are multiple such supply side incentives also government has provided. And FY 2024 end, the capacity of module in the country was close to around 72. We foresee that this capacity to reach to close to around 140 to 150 gigawatt in next 5 to 6 years time. When it comes to cell, from it was around 8.1 gigawatt. We also expect this to reach to close to around 55 to 60, when to some extent India would be self-sufficient, independent in terms of starting from, and out of this 39.6 gigawatt of integrated capacity we are talking about, we will start from polysilicon to ingot wafer and then cell and module. India would be to some extent independent of the raw materials. And then based on all these things, there are multiple RE, renewable energy business opportunities currently today we have. And I'm sure all this business will grow to million to billion kind of a dollar business in the coming years. Thank you so much. That's it. And okay, my first question is to Mr. Saha. We obviously understand that you have a 3.5 gigawatt of operating capacity, and you are setting up solar PV module plants and also integrated plants, cell and module plants. But we'd like to understand from you about the technology evolution in this industry. We know that industry has started from polycrystalline silicon to monopark to TOPCon and HJT. If you can give us some idea about the comparative picture of these technologies, and also some insights on the upcoming technologies like tandem, etc. If you can talk about technology evolution.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity, and I can talk through the technology question because this is what I have done for the last 30 years of my career. Silicon, if you go back to the history of silicon, silicon solar cells, it goes back way back to 1950s, okay, when the first silicon solar cell was made in Bell Labs. And then over the year, monocrystalline silicon, or crystal made from a single ingot, has been the popular material of choice because of its low defects and high efficiency that could be produced, solar cells that could be produced. Polycrystalline silicon is actually innovation which came out only in early 2000 to overcome the challenge of availability of monocrystalline silicon. So monocrystalline silicon was extremely expensive. It was derived from the semiconductor industry mainly, the ingots, and then you had to cut small wafers. At that time, 2-inch wafers, 3-inch wafers had to be cut, circular wafers, and solar cells were made. When the commercialization of silicon started, of this PV started in early 2000, at that time, the cost was the overriding factor. And I still remember in 2006, 2005, 2006, when the crisis of silicon was at the height, the polysilicon was being sold at $500 a kg. That polysilicon today is at $5 a kg in China, and about $10, $15 a kg in other rest of the world. So I would say the cost down approach led to the birth of polycrystalline silicon, which is basically several different crystals of silicon melted together in a directional solidification furnace and cut into wafers and solar cells made out of that. So the early large capacities that were set up by likes of Suntech, Ingli, Trina were with polycrystalline silicon. While the generation of crystalline silicon, monocrystalline silicon manufacturers of like Bosch and Q-Cells, etc., who existed even before them, they were primarily relying on monocrystalline. And there was a big debate on which is better. The early monocrystalline or polycrystalline silicon actually were used to make what is called an aluminum BSF cell. Aluminum back surface field cell. This is basically a monofacial cell where you have an aluminum layer at the back, which causes higher VOC, enhances the capture of electron hole pairs, and therefore it leads to higher VOC and higher efficiency. The state-of-art efficiencies in those times was about 16% with monocrystalline and about 15% with polycrystalline. as the world evolved, slowly polycrystalline silicon, people realized that there were too many issues with polycrystalline silicon, and the production of polycrystalline silicon wafers slowly started to decline, and the technology that came up, which replaced aluminum BSF, was PERC. So what is PERC? PERC is basically the same polycrystalline or monocrystalline silicon with a number of, with a tin oxide coating, aluminum oxide coating at the back, and then a number of holes drilled into that aluminum oxide coating, and then the aluminum layer is put, the metallization layer is put. This causes local back surface field, which enhances the efficiency of the cell. And that went up to about 20%, and which then gradually improved to about 21%. Polycrystalline silicon by that time had already, been sort of obsolete, because the efficiency limit of polycrystalline silicon was about 19.5%. Everybody switched to monocrystalline. By that time, monocrystalline prices also had come down, early 2020s. And that was PERC, which the technology of PERC, which was commercialized in 21-22, actually was discovered way back in 1973 by Dr. Green in UNSW. It took 50 years for commercializing that technology. The efficiencies of PERC slowly improved to about 22%, and that was kind of the maximum efficiency prevalent commercially at that time. But then the next level of innovation led to TOPCon, which is a more complicated structure, where there are more number of process steps, and there is a passivation of the top contact also. And when you go to that kind of efficiencies, the technology switched from P-type to N-type wafers. Efficiencies jumped to about 23.5%, 24%, and presently it's ranging above 25%. So these are broad, technology outline of what changed in the crystalline silicon field. And going forward, HJT technology came up, and HJT's technology is not new. It was started by Sanyo in 1988 or something. They filed the first patent, 86 or 88. And Sanyo had the first generation of heterojunction technology at that point of time. It also is the N-type, but with a completely different structure, with amorphous silicon on top and bottom of crystalline silicon, double-sided heterojunction. It used to be called HIT cell, not heterojunction HJT, but HIT. When Sanyo's patent ran out, there were new innovators in HJT technology, including from China and from Europe, Meyer Burger, and currently a few others in China, Longi, Huasan, and such others. Almost everyone has a program on HJT. HJT is a totally different structure and a totally different approach to enhancing efficiency of solar cells with a heterojunction. A heterojunction is basically when two dissimilar semiconductors are joined together. Dissimilar band gap semiconductors are joined together. And that's how the technology evolved. Going forward, what's the future? The future is today the highest efficiency heterojunction commercial production is about 26%. TOPCon is about 25.3, 25.4%. There's a 0.5% gap between heterojunction and TOPCon. Now all these technologies now need something more to break through the theoretical efficiency of silicon, which is about 29%. So that's when the next generation of tandem junction solar cells are coming in. Tandem junctions are basically a perovskite layer on top of a TOPCon. So there are basically two cells working in tandem, in different parts of the wavelength of light, and they are generating the kind of efficiencies which are beyond 30% also. In between, there is also something which is called XBC, which is back contact cells, where all the contacts in the front are going to the back. And it requires some specialized processes with additional process steps, which like lithography, which can actually give a 26+% cells. So that has been the journey of technology so far. I feel all of these are really significant improvements, and none of them are really spectacular changes, but they're more of incremental changes that have, or incremental efficiency enhancements that have gone to, establish the technology of today, which is what you see in the market.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think in line with that, I now would like to ask Mr. Ghosh. Mr. Saha talked about the technology evolution, and we know that First Solar has set up a thin film plant a few months back of around 3.3 gigawatt. Would like to know, understand a little more about that technology, how it is different than the traditional polycrystalline technology. What are the typical use cases? If you can just actually give us a good idea about that technology.
So thanks Rudranil. So thin film technologies, photovoltaics is very differentiated from crystalline silicon in terms of material use, manufacturing, and performance. The way thin films are produced is by deposition of a very thin layer of semiconductor on a piece of glass. And we typically convert a thin sheet of glass, which is about 2.5 mm thick, 2 meter by 1 meter, into a module in about 4 hours, right? Whereas if you look at the entire value chain of semiconductor to modules, in the case of silicon, it could take days, depending on when you refine the polysilicon, where you cut the wafer. So when you do silicon to module, it's a batch process where there is 3 distinct or 4 distinct parts of the value chain. Thin films follows a very integrated manufacturing process, where the core of the technology is how you deposit semiconductor, and then you activate the device, and then organically create the cell using high-speed lasers. Everything is done on the piece of glass. Typically, we would use about 98% less material to get to the same capacity as compared to silicon, because our whole semiconductor stack is about 3 microns thick. Compare and contrast that with TOPCon cells, which are about 135, 140 microns today, right, Ivan? So that gives you a sense of the frugality of the manufacturing process. Also because we're dealing with deposition as opposed to creating polysilicon or monosilicon from metal grade silica as the core semiconductor. It's very, it's relatively less intensive in terms of its energy and water uses. So the manufacturing process of thin films is more resource efficient as compared to crystalline silicon. Now, that's on the technology and on the manufacturing side, right? Use cases, you can use thin films anywhere where you use a silicon module. Typically for us, our technology we've optimized to be used in large ground mount utility scale application. Thin films from day one have been a dual glass module. We use glass on glass because we're depositing the semiconductor on a glass, and then we have another glass from the back as to kind of encapsulate and protect the semiconductor device. So in terms of the performance, typically thin film, at least cadmium telluride thin films, which is what we make. There are other categories of thin film semiconductors. CIGS is another one which has been commercially scaled up. But in the thin film industry, First Solar has been perhaps the only company which has successfully scaled up its technology, to a meaningful size as compared to other competing thin film technologies. And our experience is that anywhere between the two tropics, where ambient temperatures are high, uh, and there is a lot of moisture and humidity in the atmosphere, we would produce more electrons for the same amount of photons which fall on the module, right? Plus, typically, again, because of the physics of the material, we would manage varying qualities of light as well as varying angles of light as compared to silicon. So hot, humid climates, and if the light spectrum has a broader shift because of moisture in the atmosphere, we would produce more energy over lifetime as compared to crystalline silicon. The flip side of thin films is that the conversion efficiency under ideal conditions today is relatively less. So you would need slightly more land and slightly more balance of system cost to install our panels versus a TOPCon module. But then we perhaps produce more energy over the lifetime of the same installation.
And are you also manufacturing flexible thin film modules here?
No. We don't do that. That's flexible PV is very different from what we do. Our panels are rigid glass on which there is a deposition, so they're not flexible by any stretch of imagination.
My next question is to Mr. Paithankar. So, we obviously, it's everywhere in the public domain, you're talking about coming up with a 5.4 gigawatt of solar cell plant plus a 6 gigawatt of integrated plant. Question is that how this kind of a backward integration will help the Indian manufacturers in de-risking their operations?
Great. When I thought, you were going to say it's all in public domain, I thought you were going to talk about IPO. But yeah, 5.4 gigawatts of cell manufacturing is definitely something that we are looking forward to. 1.4 gigawatts out of that is mono-PERC, and 4 gigawatts is TOPCon. Cell in the whole technology, I would say, reverse integration is going to be the new currency in the solar manufacturing value chain. And the reason why I say that is because in India, the policy framework as well. So two markets are extremely important for us. The first market is India, and the second market is United States. And I'll deconstruct why I say that. Right? That's because in India, actually you showed it, right? 500 gigawatts is what we need to reach by 2030. 5.5 years, that's really it. So 5.5 years to reach that, you just do the simple math, it's 55 gigawatts to 60 gigawatts every year. 35 to 40 gigawatts needs to come from solar.
Yes.
It is huge. It is a big number, and which obviously translates to a fairly large demand. And a very similar situation going in United States as well. Very, very similar. Both are galloping 6, 7, 8 gigawatts per year are getting added to the market, right? The important part is policy framework is drifting towards making sure that the cell is manufactured outside of a particular geography. And that's something which is, which is getting increasingly important. Therefore, whether it's a supply in India to schemes like PM Kusum, PM Surya Ghar Yojana, many of the SECI projects, some of them are now coming without DCR requirements, but certainly several of them are coming with DCR requirements. Again, the drift there is going to be towards DCR requirements. So in India, we are moving towards a situation where we need cells locally, and in the US, non-China cells, where again Indian manufacturers can give cells. So in the whole chain, having cells is becoming extremely important.
Even with that, we still understand that polysilicon, that specific geography that you are talking about, they still hold more than 90% of the global manufacturing. By manufacturing cell in India, will truly be self-sufficient, or there will still be some dependency on the other geographies for it?
A great question. How we wish we had a magic wand,
Yeah.
and you wave it, And we have, lo and behold, many polysilicon plants, many wafer and ingot plants, and everything happens. But that unfortunately is not the case. Polysilicon is an extremely intense process in terms of energy, in terms of capital, in terms of many other things. Right? And so that will take time.
Right.
Wafers and ingots, I mean, polysilicon is 85% value chain with China, but wafers and ingots is 97%.
Correct.
Right? So, so it's going to take time. You know, Rome is not built in a day.
Correct.
These policies are penetrating, and you will start seeing that slowly they will keep coming down. Once you have modules, you'll go to cells. Once you have cells, you'll go to wafers and ingots.
Right.
And who knows, so on and so forth. So we'll see how does it all move out. But the intent of the dispensation government that we have right now in India and in US clearly is towards more and more manufacturing outside of China.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Garg, question is somewhat related to that, but I would like to understand the other spectrum of the things. So if I'm talking about Jackson, maybe starting with, I've heard you speaking to the other platforms, from a very small EPC projects to now having close to around 1.2 gigawatt of solar module manufacturing. It's a tremendous journey in the last few years, but you don't have a cell manufacturing as of now. So how you are essentially, there are a lot of risk associated with importing so much of raw materials and then manufacturing. How you manage those risks? As an Indian manufacturer, how they are managing these risks?
Thank you and good afternoon to everyone. So I think, yes, we have done several things in solar. Jackson as a group is 75, 77 years now in the country. And we, as he rightly said, we started with a small EPC as an experimentation, then even went into MMS and finally kind of settled down into core manufacturing of solar modules. And having said that, we ramped up this quite fast from our standards, maybe not the way modules capacity has gone in India. Means in last 2 to 3 years, we have really added huge capacities of module manufacturing. And as we saw in this presentation in morning, the cell manufacturing is also going to catch up very fast. So to be successful now, as we feel, and the country is also our government policies are supporting, is the backward integration. So very clearly, we have already announced that we'll be putting up 2.5 gigawatt of cell manufacturing, more for not for internal security, but more for the direction we are seeing in terms of support by government towards Make in India, self-reliability, self-sustainability, and etc. etc. So that's the first step in terms of backward integration. We'll be for sure going for the TOPCon technology, because that's the technology right now. While Ivansa said that there is an evolution of technology which is on the anvil, but then you have to take a plunge. Means if you wait for perovskite, then you wait another 3 years. So yes, these kind of risks are associated with typically with the PV industry. Early movers always have an advantage. So we feel we are still not late. In terms of, so I think on the risk side, I don't see any issue as such on the module manufacturing. Today we have really an advantage because most of you might be who are tracking solar industry. There is a glut of supply chain in the neighboring countries who have added capacities beyond the demand. So good quality supplies are available at a very competitive prices, which in a way is good for the sector, because you are able to give the best bill of material to customers. Because how do you ensure quality? Quality is basically about the process and the raw material what you use. So process definitely is in our control, and raw material is also largely in our control as to what we buy. Knowing the industry, there are what we call always the premium, medium, and minimum players in every component and every product. So it is up to us to ensure that the credibility what we carry of this 77 years behind us. And solar module is a product we all know, not a new thing now, TOPCon 30 years. So, the people need to have a product from a brand which is, which is having credibility behind. So we don't want to actually get out of that credible part what we say that 30 years this company is going to stay, and we have some onus on us to give the right quality. So I think when I see the quality, price and availability, for us I would put it like quality is the first and foremost, because as we increase our capacities, uh, the customers who will be actually buying these volumes are have enough knowledge now on how to select a module. Okay, the very small portion of the of your output which is sold to customers at the end customers, when I say, who actually do not know the technology, who don't understand, they go more by, let's say, brand or things. But large part of customers understand the product. So I think for us, if we want to increase volumes, the most important part is to retain the quality foremost. Pricing as such is, you have to be in the market, so you have to be competitive. I cannot dictate my prices. So there is a pricing which is acceptable price in the market, and I have to see that how I can optimize my resources, my cost, etc., to remain competitive, because that can only add to growth. When it comes to availability, I think today means the data shows that there is no shortage of solar panels, and I'm very happy that to say that most of the industry, my peer companies, when we discuss, are having a handy order book, which is a very good news, despite the huge capacity what we see of 54 gigawatt, etc. Already as per the LMM. But when I talk to most of my peer group companies, everybody is saying that no, we are full, we are full, we are booked. So that's a very good news, and that's a motivation to keep on adding. While on the other side, we fear by the numbers that where is this going? Because at the end of the day, when you see India has installed only 19 gigawatt. So maybe in next 6 months, it could be 40 gigawatt. On the other side, capacity is getting added by 20 gigawatt. So the mathematics are not really something which is tricky. But good that most of the industry, most of my peer companies are having a very healthy order book. So that's a good thing to motivate. And cell industry is also coming up. And as I said, I think Amit was saying that I was also talking to somebody. India will go towards backward integration. We have a government which is supporting the industry, the sector, which is a very good news. This is the right time to invest. As I said, better earlier than later if you want to really do business. So I think somebody said that once India has this 100 gigawatt of cells, what was shown in the presentation earlier, the only way is backward integration. So yes, we will definitely bring, then possibly to ingot, and then definitely maybe, as Amit said, that silicon melting is definitely not everybody's ball game. Even today, globally, if you talk about wafer, there are suppliers only on fingers. The problem is that as you go backward, you cannot have so many manufacturers. It will be concentrated. Today, for module in India, I think we have 84 or 90 manufacturers in list of ALMM. As we go towards cell, it will reduce to maybe 15 or 20. As you go towards ingot, maybe again 5. No, 5. 2 are already there, so maybe 3 more. Oh, 3 are there, sorry. Sure. So 2, 3. So I think this is going to happen. This is going to happen, which is good for the industry, in my view.
Thank you. There is a time check actually. I think we only have 10-15 minutes left for the discussion. So I'd probably club a few questions, but my next question is to Mr. Behal. You come from an organization which is creating an ecosystem which foster investment in the country. So maybe if we all are familiar with some of the landmark policies, just give us in that overview. But we also would like to understand that, when it comes to the overall ecosystem of solar PV manufacturing, how self-sufficient India is as of now, if you can talk about a little bit of that. And with global supply chain disrupted in the recent years, can you talk about, what kind of steps Indian government is likely to take to kind of safeguard the Indian manufacturers from those global uncertainties?
Sure. Thank you. So, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, you
Okay. So you see, right from 2010 till now, the way the solar PV manufacturing has increased significantly. Uh, we were standing at like 2.9 gigawatt, and now we are at with the CAGR of around 38%. Am I audible now? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was saying, right, from 2010 till now, from 2.9 gigawatt to 69 gigawatt, where we're standing right now, with the CAGR of 38%, we have come a long, long way. And in next 5 to 6 years, we'll see another 50% of addition of this manufacturing capacity, and this has been supplemented by a lot of policies which everybody is discussing, which includes production link incentive, which is one of the marquee policies of the government of India, which was presented to boost the domestic manufacturing and capability of the domestic players, and it was in tranches of 2 with 50 gigawatt of targeted capacity and 3 billion of the total capital outlay. There are other policies like ALMM and etc., which were brought in to not only to boost the domestic production, but also to increase the demand of the products which are locally available, and to bring the standards of these domestic players to that level. And that is where these policies like ALMM and domestic content requirement has come into picture. Having said that, there are so many other initiatives which has been taken by the government, which includes BCD and there are corpus which is in MNRE for research and development. There is public procurement which emphasizes the procurement of the domestic products, etc. And not only on the supply side, on the demand side, in your presentation, I could see that the renewable purchase obligations, etc. So there has been a balance of not only the demand side, but also the supply side as well as the demand side. So I think government is playing its role very well. But of course, there are other components also, finance and availability of raw material, etc. But I think, as everybody said, we are on the right path towards having that strong domestic ecosystem in the country. As far as the self-sufficiency is concerned, I mean, honestly, you put together all of these, and the demand everyone is talking about. Mr. Anurag said, so everybody is booked. So you see, as of today, I would say if we are self-sufficient, we are not. We have seen in the times of during the pandemic, COVID, how vulnerable the whole economy is. Not only India, the other countries are dependent on only one country, right? And that made everybody feel, how important is to de-risk ourselves, and therefore, policies like China Plus, which has been adopted by most of the developing economies, have come into picture, and of course, India has naturally an advantage because of the robust demand policies, economies of scale, etc. But yeah, I mean, policies and everything put together, everybody will have to play the role. Some of the PLI aspirants, the participants have expressed to be part of that polysilicon manufacturing as well. But everybody will have to play the role, government as well as the industry.
Thank you. So my next question is to Mr. Saha. There are two parts to it. One is obviously we talked about various policies and PM Kusum or this Har Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, all of these things. So we are essentially trying to take solar to the grassroots level and not only the grid-mounted kind of solar. As a company, how you are essentially supporting this kind of a massive scheme by availing those kind of panels to the grassroots level, one. Second is we are talking about India becoming a global manufacturing hub. We have talked about all kind of technology evolution, backward integration, etc. But still, what are those basic challenges that you see, at an infrastructure level or at an overall policy level that need to be improved so that India can actually truly become this manufacturing
Right.
hub?
Let me answer the first question. Again, everything has been said in the DRHP that we just launched, so I just stick to that.
Yeah.
Whatever the PM Kusum, etc., all of those schemes, these are very, very small projects, 1 to kilowatt, 5 kilowatt kind of, 10 kilowatt kind of projects. So we have extended distribution network to address that.
Okay.
And distributors have their own system integrators and all of that. So we have about a large pan-India distribution system, and that is the way that we are handling that scheme. And it's a major initiative on our side. Coming to your next question, and this is what actually is the topic: what is the essential ingredient for India to become a major RE manufacturing hub?
Yeah.
I think that's what is extremely important to talk about. What we have done, what have we done in the last 10, 14 years? We have grown from almost nothing to about 73 gigawatt of installed projects, right?
Yeah.
Development that has happened in solar. I'm talking about only solar. And there is more to come. We'll go to 150 very soon, maybe. And then probably we will come very close to that 300 megawatt target for solar by 2030, or we'll exceed that. Now, does that mean we are well positioned to become a global manufacturing hub in solar? I'm afraid that's not really, that may not be the right way of putting it, because to become a global manufacturing hub, there are many things that are needed, which are still, besides the policy, besides the announcements that have been made. There are several key factors. I mean, India has not been generally manufacturing destination for industries other than, let's say, auto. We have never really excelled in large-scale manufacturing, be it electronics, be it any other, white goods or whatever. There are much multifold bigger economies on manufacturing economies in the world. So what does it take to all these announcements to come to really, deliver what it is required to become, a manufacturing giant in solar? It requires, first of all, a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars, number one. Number two, it requires a lot of maturity in terms of understanding the technology and the way it is adopted on large volumes on production floors. It's not an easy job. You know the process, you are buying a technology from a OEM in China that will not make you a global manufacturing hub. You need to internalize that learning that has gone into making that technology available, making this technology to the way that it is, that the OEM is selling you. I mean, he has done a lot of work to mature it to a level. But when you buy technology, it's like, going to a McDonald's shop and buying a McDonald's burger, right? It's the recipe is fixed, the The quality is very familiar. When you taste this, you know it is McDonald's, right? But tomorrow, if you want to enhance the taste, increase your efficiency, increase your productivity, and become cost effective, and become really a cost leader, then there are a lot of other stuff that will go into the McDonald's basic burger to make it really taste different than a standalone, a commercialized, product, what the OEM has given you. It will require a lot of R&D. It will require a huge amount of investments in R&D. It will require a huge amount of investment in the best manufacturing practices on the shop floor. And let me tell you, there are many things which are not told by the OEM when they sell you equipment. They will tell you only what you need to know to deliver what is there in the contract. There are many things which are not told. And those are the little recipes, kitchen secrets that they have, which they will introduce later at a higher cost. Okay, and they will ask for a fee to transfer the technology to you. Now my question is, how do we jumpstart this? To build all this 50, 60 gigawatt of capacity that has been announced, how do we jumpstart this and really get there in time within that 4 or 5 years of next 4 or 5 years time frame, without having like anything below module in India is still very new. Cell, TOPCon, hardly 1 or 2 players, very suboptimal capacity. And TOPCon is not an easy process to control. So how do we jumpstart this? We have to buy or get into collaborations for getting this technology from outside. And China is the best example for that. It has already been proven there, it has been done there. So getting an OEM partner is the first step to deliver your machines and set up the line. But getting into real hardcore manufacturing, R&D or process innovations is something you have to learn from Chinese. And it will come only with technology innovation. I mean, I thought I knew that I knew the process of TOPCon very well. Last week I was in China. I went to a shop floor, TOPCon shop floor, and there are at least 10 things that I saw that I have not seen before. 10 things of little tweaks in the process. Right. Like after printing or during the final printing, they are putting in into the ambient, they are putting in hot steam to improve the laydown of the silver paste and ensure there is no finger cuts so that your EL image looks good. I didn't know that. And nobody will know that unless you have gone there and seen it and adopted it here. So what got us here so far will not get us to 2030 the way that we look at it right now, visualize it right now. That's the point that I want to make.
So I think investment in innovation, R&D is absolutely critical. I think I'll go to Mr. Paithankar, a similar theme, but you talked about 2 markets, India and US. So I think increasingly the global markets are opening up because of policies like IRA, and then we are talking about countries that are adopting China plus 1. That obviously opens the door for Indian companies. So, but competing in the global market is not easy. So what do you think that which are the recipes to become successful in the export markets for the Indian manufacturers? Number 1. And second thing, I think then the Indian manufacturers will have both the markets. There is a huge domestic market as well as the export market. How to balance both? How to look after the domestic demand as well as, say, because I think export prices, you obviously earn a little more than what you kind of get. So how to balance both of that, if you can answer that.
Sure. And I'm not evading those questions. I just want to build upon what my friend Ivan said, and I fully agree with what he said. It's so to be successful and be a manufacturing powerhouse, which is able to supply to everywhere in the world, Yes, there are many hoops that we have to run through. And the biggest, I think, is here in the brain. I think I haven't talked about money. Money will come. He's also filed a DRHP, and I think money is something that this country can manage. It'll manage. But human talent and brain power is something that we will need to. I mean, we already have it. The good part is that the gray matter is there.
Yeah.
But is the neural network configured for making sure that we understand manufacturing, we understand the nuances of manufacturing, we have that continuous improvement in our mind, and those subtle little kitchen secret tweaks that he was talking about, you know, we come on our own. And by the way, China has done a phenomenal job. For everything that we say about China, they have done a phenomenal job in the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
And so there is nothing wrong in saying that, you know, we have to learn from the best. And at this point in time, I mean, scientists who were in UNSW went back and almost created this. And they have single-handedly, as a nation, took the cost of solar panel from where it was to where it is today. So all credit to them. We have to see, we have to learn at probably 10x the speed that they have done and get there fairly quickly to be successful. So I think in the interim, there are, you know, again, Rome is not built in a day. So there have to be stages in which you go ahead and do that. From our perspective, what really will make us successful to start with is size and scale. I'm sorry, speed and scale. So how quickly do you read the tea leaves? So in United States, for instance, it's important that, like in India, we talk about Make in India. They would like to have a manufacturing ecosystem in the United States. And so do we have a strong base? So for instance, Wari has gone ahead and actually set up a manufacturing facility in United States. So we have 1.6 gigawatts of facility coming up very, very soon now, which will take to 3 gigawatts and eventually to 5 gigawatts of module manufacturing, which will supply, the cells will come from India. So whichever geography that you're going to, what are the political situations and compulsions that the, that those nations are putting in? And increasingly localization of manufacturing is going to be a very important piece of the element. And the good part is that Indian capital will be welcome. So I think those, we need to read those tea leaves and we need to then supercharge the whole network. Okay, number one, that. And that will build a scale, and eventually that will give us the dollars which is required to put in research and development. At this point in time, some of the capital budgets that some of our Indian companies have, that's the R&D budget of a Chinese company. So I think we need to get to that point where we start, doing all of that. As a nation, also one important aspect is, and you talked about government actually also creating an environment of research and development. I think co-development is also going to be required for some time before these manufacturers also start, investing on their own. These are things which will be required.
Thank you. I think I have 3 more questions to 3 of our remaining panelists. So, Mr. Ghosh, in that same line, talking about innovation part, I think First Solar being that within the top 10 global manufacturers, I would like to understand like what kind of best practices that you bring to India when it comes to manufacturing. And in your opinion, can India actually lead in terms of innovation and technology development in the coming years? Do we have in us?
So yes, so in our opinion, India is already there. Proof is somebody like us. We've invested 5,500 crores. We've set up a fully integrated all the way to the semiconductor facility with 0 dependencies on China, right? And for the last 3 decades of our existence, we've successfully competed against Chinese companies. Remember one thing, right? When you compete against Chinese companies, you're competing against a country. Because the Chinese ecosystem didn't get built overnight. It also took them about 15 years to come to where they are. Ivan talked about the most successful template of manufacturing in India is the auto sector, right? let's go back to the early 90s when the auto sector started. What were the duties on auto? 300%. How long did they last? Even today, if you want to import an automobile into India, you're paying 100% duty. And when 25% duty was put on solar cells, there are our colleagues in the industry raised red flags to force the government to withdraw the policies which would encourage manufacturing. Unfortunately, over the last 5 years, solar manufacturing policies started to really take shape in 2019. The ALLM was announced on both module and cell. 15% corporate tax rates were announced. The early contours of PLI started taking shape. BCDs were invoked in 2021. But between, let's say, 21 to 24, there has been numerous policy flip-flops. I'll give you our example. The day we got handed over our allotment letter for PLI, the same day the government withdrew ALLM and left the market completely open for dumping, right? How will you build a manufacturing ecosystem by driving with looking at the rear view mirror? We cannot have reactive policies. Creating manufacturing ecosystem takes time. It takes stability of policy. Yes, we have tripled the module assembly, I call it module assembly capacity, in 6 months from the time ALLM was imposed, simply because it takes about 60 crores to put up a module line, gigawatt. How much does it put up a wafer to cell line of the same capacity? It's about 10x. So somebody like Amit and Ivan would think twice before committing that kind of capital if they're contending with a cell which is being sold below production cost. And the Chinese will keep doing that, right? This is not the fair price. And then we get into this whole argument about, oh, we are not competitive. Well, I mean, which industry will work at negative IRRs? The only country in the world which can support that is China, because it's state subsidized, right? Unfortunately, we cannot do that. But I think the way to look at this is we are just getting started in the renewable sector. Your chart didn't show one figure which Invest India had put out. If we are to hit our net zero goals, the amount of renewable capacity required is about 5,400 gigawatts. We are still talking 500 gigawatts right now and churning all these seminars. Manufacturing is a long game, right? Whatever we do now will start showing benefits by 2030. By the way, we talk about cell production. Already the next 2.5 to 3 years of demand is already allocated to foreign cells. So even if we start our factories today, you're not going to be able to sell a single cell unless there is DCR protection in the market. So the point is, we can be a manufacturing powerhouse. We proved it in auto. We've proved it with frugal innovation in our space program. Innovation is the key. Ivan talked about going to a McDonald's and buying a burger. The mindset has to change from buying and assembling to innovating. And to me, the ability of corporates to put capital at risk to innovate. Innovation cannot be a CSR activity, right? Innovation has to be, you have to target and have the ability to put capital at risk. Now you will do that when you make money in this business, right? And for making money in this business, you need to have a level playing field against a monopolistic capacity. If you do that, which we did in auto and whichever sectors we have done it, I mean, for all every manufacturing in India has got some kind of protection. Because you go to steel, you go to aluminum, you go to any sector, there is targeted overproduction in China, which is targeted to undermine manufacturing in the other parts of the world, because that's what they want to do. So if you really want to create jobs for your own people, 12 lakh engineers graduate every year. Everybody cannot be a startup or a YouTuber, right? So how do you create those jobs without manufacturing is a question mark. I mean, we have to get to 25% GDP on manufacturing from 17. So we have to have Atmanirbhar Bharat in letter and spirit. And if you do that, then I think the solar sector, pretty much similar to auto sector, can get into being a manufacturing powerhouse for the world.
Thank you. Mr. Garg, similar line, we talked about a lot of bottlenecks and where we are lacking with China, but then India is also have some specific, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. India is also have some specific advantages in terms of demographic dividend. We have a very young workforce where the Chinese workforce are aging. The average wages, etc., if you see, we are much lower than that. Considering all of that, what do you think that, what all things, while the technology innovations, etc., we have already talked about and they will obviously will come, but these kind of in demographic dividends and multiple other factors that we have, how do you see that, India will be faring when it comes to manufacturing?
So first of all, I think, as we know, we are running out of time, and I thanks all the audience here for patient hearing. I think India has, the advantage today, means as you rightly already mentioned, China, we know, was a cost-effective country, but in China, we know that the costs have gone up. The labor costs have gone up. Okay, so that advantage which China had actually is no more there. So I would say on that front, we are very well placed. We have, as I again repeat, we have the policy support, although as Sujoy said that we need consistency in that front, that no flip-flop will not work when you want to put capital investment. So that's really needed. If we see that stability in the policy from the government side, I think the investment is not an issue, as we all said. We can see that from the capital market, which are being, people are going to those markets, that's not an issue at all. It's just our will, and possibly this sector was not focused in that way, like other sectors have been focused. But now, the government, the PM himself is kind of advocating this at the top of his voice on the solarization, on implementation. So I'm pretty confident from that point of view that once there's a focus from the investor lobby, from the people like us who understand technology, we don't have resource issue, we don't have land issue, we don't have capability issue, and I don't want to drag this a discussion, but I think I was hearing from somebody that if we go back what China did, 20 years, 25 years back, China was also importing equipments for manufacturing, like from the likes of May & Burger, etc. But China took it on the stride. And today we all talk about China, but we forget about the history. So I think India is capable to do that. We are on that track. We just have to have a will to make it happen. And while Ivan said that no, we may not be a global manufacturing hub, I slightly disagree with that. I think if we really put all our heads together, we have the right policy, sustainability of policy, we could be a global manufacturing hub. It's not far from my point of view. Thank you.
I'm just going to echo what you said. I totally agree. Long road, but absolutely, we are right there in the right spot, and I think it's up to us to take our spot. Yeah. We can fritter it away. It's difficult. It's not easy, but we can do it.
Anurag, what I said was I didn't say India cannot be a global manufacturing hub. I said what got us here so far can't take us to that point.
Nothing against you. I think the point was that
we change our approach.
Fully agreed. I think the point is that the sector is in focus now, and I said we have to reflect back what China was and what China is, not only on what China is. Thank you.
And I've just one last question. Thank you for bearing with me to Mr. Behal. So I think everyone talked about bringing the technology to India, collaborations, FDIs, etc. If you can talk about what Invest India is essentially doing that part in terms of maybe collaborations, FDIs in the solar space or the renewable space.
Sure. So you see, everybody was talking about automotive sector. If
you can take this.
Am I audible? So everybody was giving instances about the automotive sector. If there was no FDI in the automotive sector, we can imagine how would it look like, in today's context. But having said that, as India is committed to net zero by 2070, we are talking about having 500 gigawatt by 2030. The major role has to be played by the domestic players. But having said that, I think there will always be the gaps, which can be fulfilled by the foreign players in terms of meeting those deadlines and capacities, etc. It's not only about bringing the capital, in my view. It is also, as everybody was saying, there are so many different things which is happening in China. So, all those technological advancements, new technologies, operational efficiencies, and all those things which the foreign players bring to the table. And of course, it's a win-win situation for both the sides, because they see a robust demand, etc. So it's not only about the greenfield projects, but there are also the capital markets, also the sovereign wealth funds, and everyone is so active right now, and we see their interest in investing in India because of good rate of returns. As far as Invest India's role is concerned, we sit in the center of the ecosystem. So our job is to handhold the investors throughout their life cycle, right from the pre-investment stage, where they are assessing the opportunity and navigating the policies, etc., and finally grounding the projects. So we have dedicated teams for every sector, and also dedicated teams for institutional investors, like these sovereign funds, etc. We have digital platform where we have created where they can see a repository of opportunities which are available in this country, not only the manufacturing side but also the project side. So I think, so we are an enabling agency, and we play as a role of an enabler.
Thank you so much. I think with that we conclude this panel discussion. Thank you so very much for joining today and sharing all your knowledge. And I think the entire audience, they will be hugely benefited from whatever you shared. Any question from the audience? Yeah, you have to be very quick. Yeah.
Very quickly, we're an EPC, so we've seen the ups and downs of the market since many years. To all the manufacturers, other than what is the minimum runway that you expect with the ALMM and so on and so forth, that for you to be able to invest those kind of money that you're already investing, but if there is a thing. And there's one more question for sir. So what's the minimum runway of the ALMM protection that you expect as a manufacturer in this sector? Because there have been flip-flops in the past. So what is the minimum time period that you would expect?
Minimum time period.
Yes.
Run rate is different, but
runway, I said.
Runway. Oh, okay. I heard runway.
I build runways also, so it comes easier for me.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, I think let's deconstruct the cost in China. I don't want to take a whole lot of time. I know lunch is served, so we are between lunch and so quick one. You look at the cost in China, and somebody was talking about this, right? I think you were talking about this. From a labor perspective, we're already there, right? Our costs are actually lower than Chinese labor, right? Power, which is a fairly large component of wafer ingots and cell manufacturing, and of course for polysilicon as well. Many of the states are actually giving us power, which is equivalent to China or even better. We are almost approaching United States levels in terms of power tariff. Not in all states, but some states definitely offer that, right? So two big cost components, we are very, very close to what China is. What is missing is getting the operational efficiencies quickly to that level. From a module manufacturing perspective, we are getting there. We're very, very close now, right? Cell manufacturing, of course, it's just the beginning. It's infancy for us, right? The same thing needs to happen for wafers and ingots, and we'll see how does the situation evolve. Maybe we'll just continue to buy non-China polysilicon from somewhere else. Okay, so I would say from a cost perspective, we are already there, right? So how much of ALMM will be required? That depends on the irrationality of countries around us. If I have a pricing which is totally divorced from the cost, then you will need protection. If everybody is behaving in a fair and a rational fashion, the time that you will require to give these kind of policies and incentives will be lesser. So the answer to your question is it depends.
No, I think he's right. It all depends on how we improve our capacities and reduce our costs, and the way that, see, ALMM is a non-tariff barrier. It can go away, but it can stay forever also. So it depends. That's the real answer.
Hi, my name is Prabhakar. I represent JMK Research. So my question, any of the panelists can take it up. What is the financial sort of landscape for manufacturing? Like what sort of instruments are there? Are there any challenges specific to manufacturing for financing? Because it's a very financing intensive industry, like setting up the manufacturing, especially the upstream components.
Well, the good part of that is, although it is capital intensive, capital is available. Investors are actually looking at this sector very, very actively, and renewable energy manufacturing sector is, I would say, a sector that is loved by investors. And so you're looking at equity side, debt side, whichever way you look at it. World wants India to be an alternative in the diversification of supply chain. So that, I would say, is not a real constraint. And as Sujay was reminding me, just look at the IPOs. There are 2 companies right on this dais who are going on an IPO. We should be on the market really, really very, very soon here. So raising money is not something which is difficult. I mean, I am just reminded of that song. अपना टाइम आएगा तो आज बहुत बहुत नज़दीक में अभी it's coming there.
Hello. Yeah. Hi everyone. I am Aryan. So the theme for the session was India has all the essential ingredients to become a major RE manufacturing hub. But it is a bit ironic to one of the statements that I am quoting. India doesn't have all the essential ingredients to tackle afterlife management of PV module waste. We are targeting 500 gigawatt by 2030, but there is a major chunk of waste that will be closely followed. So I'm starting off with my PhD really soon at UNSW in a related problem statement. Want to gain your insights on what type of business can be created around this problem, what challenges will be there, how relevant this problem will be, and any of you Indian industries exploring this problem right now. Thank you.
Please be in touch with me.
Sure, Amit.
And Ivan as well. I know Ivan had actually, when he was in Renew, he had actually started working with IIT Bombay on exactly the same topic. Now that I know that you're in UNSW, we'll be in touch with you.
Sure, Amit, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we'll not be able to take any further question. We already exited our time almost 30.
So may I speak?
One last question.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Sir, as we are putting the investments in renewable energy, this solar panels, when we have to install the solar panels, then land is an issue. We need lot of land. So is there some technology like say if we erect a pole and if we put the solar panels on a pole, then in less space, in less land, we can have more density of solar panels. So is there some technology going on for this land optimization also? What can be possibilities?
So, thank you for this question. I think as you will go around the expo, you will see the panels being displayed of very high watt. Like our colleague Vari, they have displayed 730 watt peak panel. So I think the power density of the solar panel is on the increase, and with the technology which Ivan was explaining, the perovskite, tandem, these all efforts are basically to increase the power density of the solar panel. If the power density of the solar panel increases but natural that you will need less space to install the solar panels for the same power, and also the cost of your BOS will go down. So that's the kind of innovation which is already happening, and I think he said a lot about that we want to achieve 30% efficiency at some point of time, which will actually put more power density on the same square feet or square meter or whatever you say, which means you need less area on the ground.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.